Dr. Jonathan Reichental, one of the earliest mentors for our GX program. Dr. Jonathan Reichental is a multiple award-winning technology and business leader whose career has spanned both the private and public sector. His talk is titled A Time Machine to 2050. Let's buckle up and take this journey with him. Thank you.
Okay, so we know change is happening, but what kind of change is happening? We're in the start of a revolution. We're living through revolution. What that means is the world that enters the revolution is very different from the world after the revolution. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Are you ready? Right. What does that look like? What does that look like in terms of technology, in terms of our lives? Well, I'm going to explore that a little bit. Thank you. I get 2 microphones. When technology happens in this new revolution, this 4th industrial revolution, the scope will be greater. It'll impact more people on day 1. It'll have greater impact. By the way, we think of impact as potentially positive, but that impact could be bad too, at scale, right? And it'll happen fast. You know it's happening fast. We can see it here. Happening almost in real time. And whilst things like artificial intelligence and data and blockchain, all these things are important, what happens when they come together? That's when the real magic happens. That's what we call convergence. But I'm actually not here to talk about these things or even the 4th Industrial Revolution. I just want to set the context for change. What I want to talk about is the future of cities. Because the greatest manifestation of all the change that's going to happen is going to be in our cities. Fixing our cities, building great cities, is going to be the grand challenge of the 21st century. 3 million people move into cities every week. We build the equivalent of New York City every single month. And by the way, we'll do that for the next 30 years. Cities are pretty important. If we're going to solve things like climate change and other things, it's going to happen inside our cities. Now, this is not an abstract concept, right? Because when you drove here or you drove to drop your kids off at school, no matter where you are in the world, you're going to see things like bad transportation. The automobile has served us pretty good, what, for about 100 years? I think we're in the negative territory right now. You know, sitting in traffic, for me, for example, to go to work when I used to go to work, was an hour to go 12 miles. I would call that a system that's broken, that needs to be fixed. And in our cities of hyper-consumerism, which has benefited a large amount of people, and by the way, cities have been successful. They are the most important, most successful things that human beings have actually ever invented. They have served more people and brought more people out of extreme poverty than just about anything else we've ever created. But there is a negative side to it. Here now in the 21st century, there's a little bit of a hangover, right, that we have to solve. For example, our air isn't clean. The World Health Organization says that about 8 million people die, directly or indirectly, because of air quality. And it's mostly happening inside our cities. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is that our behavior, if you believe the scientific consensus, which by the way I do, has changed the climate radically. And where it rains, it'll rain more. And where it's dry, it'll be drier. And when there's hurricanes, the hurricanes will be worse and more frequent. We're dealing with this right now. This isn't a problem of tomorrow or 20 or 30 years from now. Our future belongs to cities. A child born today will most likely be born in a city, will live in a city, will get a job in a city, and live out their lives in a city context. So we better pay attention to this. Right? Over the next 28 years, which is all we have between now and 2050, great change will happen, and we have opportunities in our cities to do great things. Now, why do we say, I do this work because it's the right thing to do? Building better cities to make a better quality of life is the right thing to do. But you can also do it and do well from it. Make money. Create economic opportunities. The studies show now that those cities that participate in building a better life for their people over the next decade will generate $20 trillion of new economic value. That's a trillion with a T. Our cities will be hyper-connected. Now, we're still, by the way, only about 50 to 58% of the world on the internet. We still have several billion more to connect. But we'll eventually get to the highest amount of people we can connect because there will only ever be, by the way, about 11 billion people, because after 11 billion people, the number starts to come down. Our future problem isn't overpopulation, it's underpopulation. That's beyond 2050, by the way. But connecting things, connecting devices in our cities to do things like detect air quality or the availability of good water, that'll require sensorization of our communities. Today, there's about 45 billion things connected to the internet. 2040, there's no upper limit to this. And by 2025, which is less than 3 years away, about 75 billion things will be connected. Now, you can do the math on that. What is that, like 2.5 years, whatever? Let's round it to 3 years, about 30 billion. That's 10 billion a year. It's about 1 billion devices every single month will be added to the internet. 20% of that will be in our cities. Cities are the biggest users of the Internet of Things, right? It's not just about selling devices. The hardware is a great opportunity, sure. If you want to build some sensors, there's a great opportunity here. It's about the software, the services, connectivity, new ideas, new solutions. And we are connecting our cities. We're connecting our lights. So our lights can go on only when there's people around. Isn't it a great waste that street lights are on when nobody's there? We can fix that. Sensors can fix that. Our cars will be connected. Cars, you know that already. Lots of our cars are already connected. But the story about cars is much greater than connecting cars over the next 28 years or so. Let me make some big, bold statements, and I'll come back here in 2015, and you can tell me if I was right or not. The first thing is, if you have a child in your life, or you're about to have a child, or you know a child, say the child is 6 months old or 1 year old, that child will probably never have a driver's license. That child will probably never have a car. I think that's a good thing. Eventually, likely within a few decades, it will be illegal for human beings to drive. Right? People don't like to hear that. They always say to me, well, what happens if I like to drive? Well, you'll drive on the weekend. You can't ride a horse down the highway that's beside my house. You can't do that today, but I could ride a horse on the weekend. Okay. Cars, in fact, the movement from autonomous vehicles, from driving vehicles to autonomous vehicles, analysts are now projecting could be the biggest economic boom the world has ever seen. It's a pretty bold statement, would you say? Right? Why do I say that? In 2007, Steve Jobs got on the stage at Apple in Cupertino, California, just down the street from my house, and he announced the iPhone. It's an amazing day. I remember it vividly. And you can watch it on YouTube. I encourage you to have a look at it. It's still an amazing speech. And he talks about, the fact that the phone is going to be a communicator, an internet device, and a couple of other things. What he doesn't talk about are apps, really. But in the years following 2007, we built millions of apps. We created millions of businesses worth billions of dollars. In the app stores today, whether you have a Google phone or an Android or an Apple, there are millions of applications that did not exist in 2007. Here we are in 2022 at GX Talks, Expo. I'm telling you, there is no app store for self-driving cars yet. But there will be. And we will create millions of self-driving vehicle apps. Will you create one of them? Will you create that business? We have to replace all the cars in the world. If I'm not mistaken, there are billions of cars in the world that will get replaced over the next few years. All the infrastructure that goes with it. This will be a revolution at scale that we have never experienced before over the next 30, 40 years and beyond. Now, often people say to me, Jonathan, what's going to be the most incredible tech of the next few years? And they're surprised when I say, maybe bicycles. That doesn't seem pretty high-tech, but it's pretty revolutionary, right? Communities and cities all over the world are looking at bicycles as a game changer, and they're changing communities. Great for health. Great for health. So is walking, by the way. We have to make more walkable communities. Now, as we create our wonderful new mega cities like Dubai and other places, our appetite for energy is not going down, right? We need more and more of energy to power those big screens and all the incredible beauty and wonder of our mega cities that we're building all the time. We need a lot of power, and we're in the starting years of an energy revolution. This is the right place to talk about this, I think. Right? Today it's wind, but you know tomorrow the big winner, we believe, is going to be solar. We're in the opening years of an energy revolution that's going to change the very nature of the world. Our cities are the grand project of the 21st century, and they'll be a big part of the next 28 years as we go towards 2050. You might not have thought of cities in this way, but we can build beautiful, engaging, healthy, walkable, cyclable cities like what's happening in Paris as it gets transformed. And we can build brand new cities in the ocean and on the land that use resources in completely new ways and create lives that are healthier, more meaningful, and give meaning to people's lives, right? So as I wrap up here, you might think, well, what's next? What should happen next? Well, that's a question for you. That's a question for you. Because what matters is what you do and what I do, right? You have to ask yourself, what's your role? How can I be a game changer? How can I create this world that I would love? How can I create this world that I would like to give to my children? That's the question for all of us, not for me or the technologists, but our behaviors and the things we want. That will drive the next 28 years and the years ahead. And I just leave you with a question. I leave you with a question. What will you do? What will each of you do to create a smarter and more sustainable future for tomorrow? Thank you very much.